Hello, everyone. I am Ben Johnson, and this is the Perpetual Chess Podcast. Perpetual Chess is a weekly chess interview show where we talk with accomplished chess players, authors, and personalities about their lives, their careers, and how to improve at chess. Perpetual Chess is brought to you through the generosity of its Patreon and PayPal supporters and by Chessable.com. Hey everyone, welcome back to Perpetual Chess. We have a guest that I am very excited to talk to today because I think he's a great exemplar for all of us adult chess players, although he's a little stronger than most of us, but we'll forgive him for that. He is one of Great Britain's most active, successful, and beloved players. He is the 2014 European Over 50 champion, the 2008 British co-champion, and he is the author of two books, Arkell's Odyssey and Arkell's Endgames, which just came out this year through Ginger GM Publishing. He was also featured in the Perpetual Chess favorite book, Chess for Life, in which Mathew, Sadler, and Natasha Regan spell out a lot of the secrets of his success, and we're looking forward to hearing even more of them today. So let's bring him in. Grandmaster Keith Arkell, how is everything?
Hi, Ben. Great to meet you at last. Great to be on this side rather than the other side, watching on the outside looking in.
Right. Well, yeah, and I'm excited to speak with you. And first of all, I want to thank you for sending me Arkell's Odyssey, your more biographical book. That one's a little harder to track down. So I, of course, was able to buy Arkell's Endings from Chess for Less, but for Arkell's Odyssey, you were nice enough to send it, and that's a great book as well. And I'm eager to dig into them both. But first, we got to get a little talk about quarantine life out of the way, Keith. So especially for someone like you who's plays so actively, you're renowned for going to many weekend tournaments, beating up on club level and weaker players like myself, grinding us into smithereens. So without that being an option in your life, how have you been, Keith? How have you been filling your time?
As a typical kind of thing that a chess player would say is that my life hasn't changed much. So I'm not going to say that because obviously, my life has changed. I mean, I've been very happy. Let's start by saying I've been very happy. I mean, to earn a living, I've coached and I've given the odd over the internet simul, and I've completed Arkell's Endgames, which may well have taken me another few years to complete had we not had lockdown. Simon Ginger GM, my good friend Simon Williams, was very, very tolerant with me, very patient, because he understood that I'm first and foremost not a writer. I'm first and foremost a professional player, and I've been busy. I'm most of the time busy playing chess tournaments. So it was actually 4 years ago when we first talked about the idea of writing a book, and lockdown enabled me to finish it in 4 years rather than 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that's been a theme in recent conversations with title players like yourself. There's just an absolute torrent of chess content coming out because everyone says, well, I'm stuck at home. I don't know what else to do. So I'll write about this opening, or I'll start a YouTube channel, or I'll start Twitch streaming, or in your case, at least it's sort of a unique angle, because I feel like the number of books about endgames are not as high, and of course you're renowned for your endgame play, again, as GM Sadler and Natasha Regan discuss in their book. I mean, just a very unique and inspiring style. And of course, Keith, I read both your books, and I have to say, Arkell's Ending, I mean, they're both great. I like them, but I was hoping that I would read your book and just feel like I could play like you, but I'm not sure. I think I still might need a little more work, Keith. It's kind of like some kind of black magic what you do in the endgame. What do you attribute your endgame prowess to?
Well, I'm going to begin by saying that I've not read much literature. A lot of people don't believe I've not read much literature on the chess endgames. I think whatever abilities I've got, I've acquired through practical play. As simple as that, through practical play and through being a kind of, I enjoy the endgame. I enjoy playing the endgame. I've always enjoyed trying to grind down, a long game. I've got a lot of patience. I do thoroughly enjoy sitting at the board and trying to eke a win out of something that's, if there's any possibility of getting something out of it, I'll keep the game going and try to do that. And when I first started playing chess, I mean, the players I was drawn to were the grinders. Ulf Andersson was my real hero for many years. Karpov, and Tony Miles. These guys. I love playing through the game. I love getting my chess informant, and I'd seek out the long games. So I'd find, a game lasted 100 moves. I'd think, great, I've got 100 moves game to play through. And so I kind of, I'm lucky that I'm kind of paradoxically, I'm quite a lazy person by nature, except if I enjoy something, then I'm not lazy. And I enjoy playing through long games. I enjoy playing long games. And so, and at some point I discovered I had perhaps a kind of gift for kind of positions without much material on the board. So there were some games, many before I became a grandmaster. I think possibly before becoming an IM, when I was playing some kinds of endgames at quite a decent level. I played a game Queen and Pawn against Queen and Rook Pawn against Queen, and I analysed it very well at the board. And and there's another game. I think it's actually in both books against a guy called Zach, where I analysed some quite nice mating patterns with very reduced material. I thought, I'm doing something here that's probably quite unusual. I'm winning positions that it's quite rare to win. I'm seeing mating patterns in endgames where perhaps other players would give up. So I think it's a combination of playing a lot, being enthusiastic about the endgame, and then finding I did have a kind of talent for the endgame. Whereas if you take the opposite, openings, I have no talent and no interest and no memory, and I just want to get the opening out of the way as quick as possible.
Yeah, it's a unique approach, and I do want to, even though this is an audio only podcast, although I can see you as we do this interview, but we're not going to show any games or anything like that, of course. But I do want to try to sort of draw out of you some useful lessons, but not yet. Because first I want to just say that I had had great empathy for your opponents reading through the book. I did learn some things about how one could approach the end game, and certainly the sort of dog on a bone type mentality that will win you a lot of games. But I had a feeling like if I had to play you in a tournament, you would just, even more so than like, say, Shirov or some tactical wizard, it would just strike fear in me, because I would feel like the sort of best case scenario is that I'm going to lose a 10-hour game. And, beyond that, I might lose faster. But I mean, do you get that sense when I know you play a lot of people again and again, notably your much mentioned in your writing friend Mark Hebden, but many other of the British title players, you see their names crop up over and over again in your books. Do you get a sense that people have special dread for playing you because of your affinity for long games?
Well, first of all, I don't think. I think if I'm feared, it's in a very different way to the way which most if you like, grandmasters are feared. I think anybody who plays me knows I'm not going to destroy them. I'm not going to slaughter them. I'm not going to checkmate them in at the end of the opening, or even probably in the middle game. So I think it's kind of like, I think everybody knows they'll get a good game against me. I mean, there's a lot of players out there who are going around saying I nearly drew with Keith Arkell. So there's a lot of
right. That's true,
because they've got a position which is very near to equal after 50 moves or more. So I think if there is a fear, it's a different kind of fear to the typical fear. That if I was to play a very strong grandmaster who was renowned tactically, I would fear getting destroyed. But I don't. Nobody fears that when they play me. So I think, I can't empathise with that kind of fear, because I like long games. But I think probably there's a kind of irritation that they won't be allowed to leave the board until we're king against king, or until I've maybe
right.
maybe been able to grind them down.
So what do you think it is about your personality where you frequently mention, as you did moments ago, that you're not a big fan of sitting there and studying openings, and that it just doesn't do it for you, but you are willing to sit there for so long? Is there like a through line to other aspects of your personality? Do you generally consider yourself a patient person, or someone who can sort of only do the things you're really interested in? Or what do you think the connection is to sort of a broader life?
Yeah, I mean, the second comment, I think that only when I said I'm quite lazy about things I don't like doing, and I've never got a grip on openings. I've never had any enthusiasm. I've never had any interest in them. There's positions that I like and positions I don't like. So there's positions I'd like to get out of the openings and positions I wouldn't like to get out of the openings. But studying specific moves, specific openings up to move 23 or 26, or it doesn't work for me. I think I briefly tried it and it didn't work. I forgot something, or if I remembered it on that day, then I forgot it next time I had the position a week later. My memory. I think a lot of people can say they've got bad memories or good memories. I know that memory is reliant on interest. I know that if you're interested in something, your memory works well, and if you're not interested, it doesn't work well. So we're probably in a kind of circular loop here. But I cannot get interested in opening theory. I never got interested in it. So, and I am a very on the other side of the coin. I'm a very patient person.
Okay.
No problem with patience. No problem with things going on for a long time. Whereas, I mean, in the openings, there's a kind of irony because I don't like opening theory. I've always tried to find ways to short circuit the need to prepare stuff and to learn opening. So what I did was I worked out at some point. I think it's just after my divorce. I got divorced in about '93, and I for about 2 years I studied chess like I'd never studied chess before. I just immersed myself in chess, and at that point I worked out a number of systems, opening systems, like for example G3 King's Indian type systems, and ways to play the Caro-Kann and ways to play the French. Being an example, whereby I could get the kinds of structures, the kinds of positions that I like, and there's a kind of energy which drives me to do that because way back in my kind of career, I don't know if this was a question you were going to ask me about later, but I mean, I kind of started to gradually perceive the kind of hierarchy of pawns. I started to perceive.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm probably probably jumping ahead a little bit, but
No, but go for it. Yeah. So the famed introduced in this book, the hierarchy of pawns. So let's hear about it.
well, I mean, the first one is obvious. So, I mean, if you play A4 and your opponent's got a pawn on B5, and he goes B takes A4, and then you've clearly made a positional gain. This is common sense to most chess players with a reasonable amount of experience, because then black's left with an isolated A pawn. This one's straightforward, and this carries on. So, for example, if you can play a B4 against a C5, and you can swap the B for the C, then you've made a small positional gain. You've kind of taken some power away from your opponent's control of the centre, and you've opened files for yourself for rooks to go on the left hand side of the board in a way that's perhaps not so practical in a centre when not much has happened yet. And if you go further across still, if you, for example, in a Sicilian, if you when white plays D4, white's making a small positional error because the D pawn is a little bit more valuable than a C pawn, and I think most strong. Well, it sounds a bit arrogant to say some strong players understand this and some don't. I think this is something that is understood in general, and especially at the very top. And so, for example, Ben Larsen didn't like to play 1E4 because they didn't like to play an open Sicilian, because he didn't like to play the anti-positional move D4. But obviously, in this case of the Sicilian, what the compensation white gets is the space in the centre and the initiative and the possibility of checkmating black in the first 20 moves and so on. But from a pure structural point of view, White's made a concession by playing D4 and exchanging D pawn for the C pawn. And I started to realise this goes on a much more subtle level. This is also the case with the E and D pawns. The E pawn is a little bit more valuable than the D pawn. And this is why, for example, players play the centre counter. They play D5 and are prepared to have their queen hit around the board. They're prepared to play E4, D5, E takes D5, Queen takes D5, Knight C3, Queen D8. I mean, the world champion plays this in blitz, and actually plays Queen D6 more than Queen D8. But we're prepared to even give up tempo to swap the E pawn for the D pawn. This is in its purest sense a centre counter. In the Sicilian, if after white makes the early move D4, black plays C takes D4, white plays Knight takes D4. It's said that if black can achieve the move D5 in the Sicilian, he's not just equal, but he's better. This is a kind of cliche in chess. And if you look at what's happened after those two exchanges have been made, black's lost his C and D pawn, and white's lost his D and E pawn. So again, each exchange is favouring the player who's got more the pawn on the right hand side as you're looking at the position. And this goes, and I think this goes all the way across from the A across to the F. I'm not sure about the G and H. That depends on king safety and things like that. But even the E and F, and this is where probably with the E and F particularly, I think my thinking goes a little bit contrary certainly to traditional thinking, certainly to thinking of the past, if you like. I'm not, I don't want to say that it's not the way I think anymore, but the general kind of cliches captured towards the centre. And my little thing is slightly different to that, because I don't, that would include, that would say that an E pawn is more valuable than an F pawn, but I think that the F is slightly more valuable than the E. So I think my hierarchy goes all the way across to the F inclusive. And I'll give an example will be when you're playing against the Dutch, when White's playing against the Dutch defence. If White can achieve the move E4 and nothing horrible happens and everything else remains the same, then White's made a positional gain.
Yeah, that's a good example.
So yeah, but there are other examples as well. But yeah, essentially my hierarchy goes from the A to the F. And by the way, this isn't an absolutely dogmatic thing. Obviously, this
right.
One of the things that Schwat Atalik told me a long time ago. He goes, Arkell, if you could lose your chess prejudices, you'd be a much stronger player. So I think you can't have an absolute prejudice about these things. And obviously, there's exceptions everywhere. And an exception to this will obviously be if one or both players castle queenside, then the whole thing is reversed. Or if one player doesn't castle at all, or if the kings are in the middle of the board, then it's. But this is a quite a useful concept to carry around with you. If all else being equal, in a normal position where both players have castled kingside, very often it's the case that if you don't know what to do, then just look for a favourable capture according to my hierarchy of pawns.
Okay, yeah, and for listeners who it's a lot to digest because it's kind of a unique framework as you refer to, but it's spelled out in Arkell's endings, and there's legions of examples. So it may sound kind of esoteric, but if you go through Keith's book, you'd be impressed. I mean, I myself still need to do some work to digest it, but I just like the fact that you have this kind of, to me at least, fairly unique perspective. I mean, so much chess literature. Obviously, every book and every video has some value, but it just seems like you view things kind of in your own way, which maybe again is, as you said earlier, a result of being less schooled in chess literature and more just having learned by doing. And you mentioned, getting back to what you were saying earlier about openings, one thing that I find sort of an interesting dichotomy is you mentioned you don't like learning wrote moves, but as laid out in Chess for Life and as evident from reading your books, you have certain systems that you know extremely well. Like, of course, they go into great detail about the Carlsbad in Chess for Life, and it pops up throughout your studying your games. So how does something like that work? If you just know the sort of general schemes, are you even trying to remember moves? And are you constantly thinking about new move orders, or do you accidentally know 20 moves of theory of some lines? Like, how does that all work as it sort of mixes in with your general disdain for openings?
Sometimes I mean, particularly with the black pieces, you have to know some theory just to stay on the board. I mean, it's just simply necessary. And I think and a lot of my systems, particularly with black, are a little bit dubious. And the reason why is because the stakes are high. Because I'm setting out my sail as my stall to be a little bit better with black. I'm setting out my stall to say I'm going to be structurally better. When I play, for example, this variation of the Caracan that I kind of brought into fashion. This my C5 against the advanced Caro, which incidentally I kind of conjured that one up or brought that one into existence as a way of avoiding theory, as a way of avoiding all this bishop f5 stuff.
Right.
And the irony is, I mean, like, it really was. It was like, if we're going back to maybe the mid-80s, when I thought, I can't be bothered to learn bishop f5. There's just so much sharp stuff. The theory was changing every week or more than every week. And there were so many different replies to the move. So I thought, what can I do that just stops all this stuff? I looked at C5, and there were only a very small number of examples. There was some Botvinnik Tal games which didn't not the level of those. It's a crazy thing to say about a World Championship match, but the opening play in those games wasn't particularly great. So nothing was established about the move, whether it was good or bad. And people didn't play. So I'm going to play this for a while, see what happens. I'm just going to make C5 work because structurally it's a good move. I'm swapping my C pawn for the D pawn. Structurally it works. I'm just going to play it. And then when when people start refuting it, I'll start doing something else. So the irony is my dislike of opening theory resulted in something that's I've ended up kind of certainly in the West having an opening kind of named after myself, which is the most ridiculous ridiculous idea of all that the area that I'm weakest in has resulted in an opening that I brought into existence, if you like, or kind of made work, made popular. But that's kind of, I guess it's not quite answering the question. But yeah, sometimes you have to work out with black precise orders just to stay on the board if you want to play the way I play. With white, it's a lot easier because with white you can accept equality if you like the position. So
Right.
there's a lot of variations. I mean, there's a line against Grunfeld I played. There's G3 King's Indian lines. There's Queen's Gambit. There's the exchange variation of the Queen's Gambit. I mean, the systems that I play where I'm playing the exchange, and I'm putting a knight on f3. They are theoretically equal. But I like the position, but because they're theoretically equal, which was quite interesting, even though it's quite well known now that I play these positions, and that's I'm reasonably good at playing these positions, I still get them all the time. I still know when I play when I was playing actively, and even now when I'm playing on the internet, I'm still getting these players are still playing these Queen's Gambit decline and the black side exchange variations because their book tells them the position's equal, I guess. So they're not. It doesn't bother them that I've got a reputation for playing and grinding down these positions.
Yeah, it's a good insight. John Bartholomew in the past week had a tweet that I just had to dig up because what you're saying reminded me of it, which is he said, for 99% of competitive chess players, the theoretical evaluation of an opening matters less than your level of comfort and understanding in the resulting positions. If your results are good, keep playing what you enjoy. And of course, that a lot of people chimed in, agreeing and appreciating that insight. And if someone like you, a grandmaster, suggest that, I think that obviously gives it additional weight. And of course, you practice what you preach all the time. So how would you go about what would you suggest for club players in terms of figuring out what to play? I mean, I guess it's just a matter of doing what you like. Is there any advice besides that? Because Simon in your more recent book, in Arkell's Endings, at the end, he shows some attacking games of yours and they were pretty impressive. So, and of course in the end game, one thing I wanted to eventually ask you about is sort of when to calculate, because you seem to be very astute about judging what the critical moments are and when to sort of really crunch what's going to happen. But when the moment to calculate comes, it's clear that you're strong at calculating. So at what, do you feel that you're just naturally more positionally gifted? Because seeing those games from Simon and seeing your ability to calculate, for me, it was kind of harder to tell.
I think that first and foremost, I mean, to be good at chess, you probably have to have a certain level of talent. I mean, I think that's not. I think maybe there's ways of kind of working hard to get to it. But I mean, I don't think kind of ability to calculate is probably nearer to raw talent. And I think that whatever style that you have, you're only going to excel at that style if you've got a talent to back that up. So, for example, there's a lot of club players who like playing positional chess, and I have students who like to play positional chess and like to kind of perhaps play the way I play and try to kind of grind down positions. They understand the structures, and my job when I'm coaching them is to help them to get to the strongest they can possibly become within the boundaries of their level of talent, and perhaps how much of their life they can devote to chess. If they're kind of retired, they've worked outside of chess, had a regular job at all their lives, and they've come back to chess, then it's kind of perhaps they didn't reach the potential that their talent would have got them to. But still, it's all about getting the maximum out of whatever level you naturally are at chess. I have this style to play positionally, which works out very well for me. These kind of end games and these grinds and these kind of getting an end game edge and then milking it. I think that I mean Simon Williams himself has said sometimes that a grandmaster can play kind of any style he wants, and people can actually they can misjudge it. They can think if they can think that if somebody's a really powerful attacking player and they've got a reputation for being an attacking player, but they can make a mistake of thinking they're not good endgame players, whereas they are. They are good endgame players. If you're good at chess, you can adapt to whatever style you want. I think most grandmasters would agree what the best move is in most positions. We tend to agree, even though we have different styles. We tend to agree on what is objectively the right way to play a position. And I think I enjoy playing positional chess. I enjoy grinding, and it also it's you mentioned the weekend tournaments earlier. It's a very useful way to play weekend tournaments because you're less likely to be upset. You're less likely to 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 lose a game against a weaker player or a much weaker player if you're playing a very solid way, in a way that requires a deep understanding. Um, um, if I was to play 15 moves of sharp opening theory in a weekend tournament against a 2100 player, they may know a little bit more theory than me, or they may have a tactical brainwave. They may just have a moment of brilliance, and then I've lost the game. That's much less likely to happen if you're applying a kind of a deep understanding of which pieces to swap off and which endings you've got a chance to be able to grind down. And the kind of way I play requires my opponent to understand chess quite deeply to stay on the board. So it's useful from a practical point of view to play in this way.
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense. And speaking of weekend tournaments, so Keith, you're 59, is that right?
Yeah, I'm 59.
Yeah. So I mean, and it's impressive. It looked like I was looking at your rating. It looks like it's gone down a little, but I mean, as of when Chess for Life was published, it was right near its peak. And obviously, someone who plays as often as you before the virus, it's going to move around a lot. So what advice would you have for more casual players? I mean, dedicated weekend grinders who aren't grandmasters, both for staying sharp and, of course, for managing energy, which I would say seem to be two strengths of yours.
Um, Managing energy, I really don't know the answer to that. I mean, I may just be lucky that I have a lot of stamina naturally. I mean, I got to be, I mean, people who know me know that I'm not, I don't look after myself that well. I mean, I'm reasonably sensible. I go, where I live on the seaside, and there's a lot of coastal walks, and I walk a lot when I'm at home. I do a lot of coastal walks, and so I keep kind of reasonably fit, and I don't tend to drink much alcohol when I'm at home, but I make up for that when I. The irony is,
Right.
I make up for when I go to a tournament. So if I don't look after myself that well, but I don't look after myself too badly either. So I'm kind of in the middle in that area. But I think I just happen to have a lot of stamina. I don't know why. But yeah. So. But yeah, I've actually forgot what the initial. I mean, that was part of an answer. I'm not quite sure.
Okay, yeah. Well, first let's follow up on the sort of, because I watched your interview on the Chess for Life YouTube channel with the aforementioned Mathew Sadler and Natasha Regan, and you were talking a little bit about how you're not a big drinker when you're at home, but when you see your friends, of course, your colleagues are your friends when you go to these tournaments, and of course, someone like, again, the aforementioned Simon Williams, has been known to enjoy a pint or a glass of wine. So I'm sure you guys have a lot of fun. So, and of course, for me, I mean, I'm a working dad, but if I ever got away for a tournament, I also would want to catch up with people and stuff like that. So, like, basically, at this stage in your life, like, how hard are you going? Are you staying out till 3 a.m. when you have a tournament the next day, or like, do you have certain rules in place that you won't go past? Like, what advice would you give for finding the balance between having fun and catching up with your friends, but still performing when the time comes?
Yeah, I'd really say that. I mean, don't stay out, and don't drink too much during tournaments. I mean, if I play a long tournament, I'm going to play these tournaments over which I'm off to over the next few weeks. So I don't intend to go crazy, but I'll drink to relax in the evenings. One of the biggest mistakes I've made is in the four NCL, the British League. It's because it's only over 2 days. Then you only have one night to really to socialize, and
Right.
that's the Saturday night. So I often just go, So a lot of us will stay up till 2 in the morning because it's the one chance to see each other. It's the one chance a month to see each other. So if you were to do an analysis of my results on a Sunday in the four NCL and compare that to the Saturday, you might find Saturday's like 26.50 and Sunday's like 22.50 or less, or. So yeah. But I think for tournaments and especially long tournaments, not these tournaments I've got coming up for 9 round tournaments, then you have to be very sensible. Especially at my age, you have to be sensible, and you can't go crazy. And I don't go crazy for long tournaments. For a weekend tournament, I might be a little bit crazy on a Saturday night if I'm much stronger than the other players in the tournament. But it's again, you have to be a little bit sensible as you get older.
Makes sense. And what about calculating, Keith? Is that something that you work on? Or, I mean, again, as you mentioned earlier, you feel like you probably have some talent. I certainly get that impression looking at your games. But do you do chess puzzles? Is it something you emphasized at some point, or is it more just again what you mentioned earlier about you've got some level of talent and you play a lot? What do you attribute your ability to calculate to?
I play a lot. Simply, I play a lot. I mean, I think I've played about 7,500 games, 7.5 rated games, graded or rated games. Yeah, 7,500 classical games of chess.
Amazing. Yeah.
And the ones that aren't quick draws, there are a number of quick draws. The ones that aren't quick draws, I'm calculating, and I'm calculating a lot at the board. And I do calculate, and I think people think that I don't. They're wrong. I do calculate. When I'm grinding, when I'm playing some long end game, I'm doing a lot of calculating. You need to calculate. But a lot of my calculation goes on in the notes, if you like. A lot of my calculating, you don't see the result of it on the board. The end product of my calculation is to keep the position tidy. So if you see me play a very smooth game with a minority attack, then that will not be because I understand the positional concepts of minority attack, although I do. It'll be because I have to do a lot of calculating to make it smooth. So the calculation is players who play very tactically over the board, that their calculation, you see over, you see the combinations, you see the sacrifice, you see the initiative. I use my calculation to keep control over the position. So if I beat a grandmaster, I mean, there's a game against Arkell, for example. Arkell is a very strong Russian GM, and I beat him with a minority attack. But there's a huge amount of analysis went into that game, although the game itself looks very smooth and very, very simple. So whatever kind of position you play, however dry, you're calculating a lot.
Okay. And are you practicing that at home or just playing enough where you? Yeah, that makes sense because you play more than anyone, it seems. So I would put that in the "don't try this at home" category for our listeners.
Yeah. If you're not playing a lot, then you've got to do all the exercise. You've got to do everything else. If you're not playing a crazy amount, you've got to practice. You've got to go, do puzzles and tactical challenges. And I mean, the chess sites have got loads of wonderful opportunities for practicing combinations and tactics and all this kind of stuff. So I'd say to everybody, do all that stuff. I don't, just because but even when I'm playing blitz, I'm trying to calculate. So nowadays during lockdown, I'm playing lots and lots of blitz. I mean, I might have played 8,000 games or so. I don't know, I've played a huge amount of blitz. So, but I'm trying to calculate when I'm playing blitz. But
I want to.
Sorry.
So that's okay. Yeah, I want to hear how the blitz is going, but I also just wanted to mention another point you mentioned in the book that I think is important for listeners to take. Well, sorry, there's something else I wanted to bring up, which is I think part of the reason maybe I was misled about your calculation is you have a very light touch in the book. Like you make a point of not using engines a lot, and there's not reams and reams of variations. And I think that's to the book's credit. I appreciated that and found it easier to follow, but still beneficial. But I think maybe that threw me off a little bit in terms of just how hard you're working at the board.
Yeah, what I want to say about the writing of the book, and I say it did take 4 years, is that I'm taking a long time on writing a sentence. I've done all, for 3 decades, 4 decades more. I've been annotating games for chess magazines and often, in a lot of depth. So I know the difference between, annotating with variations and annotating with words, with the explanation. And it's a lot harder to annotate with words. It's a lot harder to explain what you're thinking and what's going through your head, what variation, not variations, that's not quite what I'm saying. It's a lot harder to explain the thoughts you have about the position, which aren't variations, than it is to just give variations. You have to use the right words. You have to explain, I'm trying to get this piece to here, I'm trying to exchange that piece. And that is that's a challenge. And so sometimes you think, oh, I've just said a sentence. I've played 4 moves. I've just given a sentence. But that sentence, sometimes you've got to work very hard on that sentence to try and convey what you're trying to do in that position. The easiest thing in the world is to just say, you play your move, and then you go, if this, you can. That's very easy to do with or without a computer. But I tried to the best of my ability to remember when I what I did see on the board, and what I'm pretty sure I did see, I gave in the book. But I didn't want to give more than that. I didn't want to give more than that.
Okay.
I didn't see the point. I'm trying to. The book's trying to describe what a grandmaster thinks in the end game, what's going through a
Yeah.
grandmaster's head in the end game. So yeah, it's sometimes there might be a very what looks like a very light annotation, but I've spent quite a lot of time choosing my words very carefully. And I don't know how that's going to go down. I mean, one of the motives for doing this was so many club players have said to me, Keith, we want explanations, we want words, we don't want variations. I had that so much over the inner period before I wrote the book that I thought, okay, I'll try and do that. I'll try and give you what you want.
It's a nice break. And again, there's only so much concrete chess improvement knowledge we can share from the book, given first of all, we want people to buy the book, but second of all, this is audio only, a podcast. But one insight that you mentioned a couple times that I think could be helpful was this idea that sometimes in an end game where you might have a small edge you're trying to push, you say often all you can do is look to improve your position. Where, I think with club players in particular, there's sort of an inclination to look for something forcing, especially because like if you're doing puzzles, you're looking at forcing moves. But you seem to have a very sort of laissez-faire approach where you just say, okay, I'm better, I'm going to improve something, and sooner or later maybe my opponent will mess up, and then sure enough, it seems like eventually they do.
Yeah, I mean, you're not even really thinking in terms of them messing up. You're thinking in terms of just making ground, making progress. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if they do mess up, okay, great. I'm not an artist to the point of I don't want them to play a bad move. I don't want to spoil my piece of art. So
Right.
it's competitive. So I want to win the game, or I want to draw a difficult position. So one thing is that most of chess, you've not got a decisive advantage or a decisive disadvantage. Most of chess, it's a struggle, and you're either equal, or you're a little bit better, or you're a little bit worse, and and so therefore you can't force a win. If you're a little bit better, there's no force to win there. There's probably not a force to win there, or you've got most likely you've got no idea when there's a force to win and when there isn't. I mean, the nature of what does advantage mean? I mean, advantage means perhaps a position that's easier for one player to play than the other, a position where one player can put the other under pressure and create problems more so than the other player can reciprocate with. So yeah, advantage is a very curious concept, but yeah, you're trying to increase your advantage, to increase the pressure until position becomes so difficult that either there isn't a defense anymore, or your opponent's incapable of finding a defense anymore. And I think I very rarely, when I'm grinding down some endgame, I very rarely know the moment when it's transitioned from advantage to winning. Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know. I mean, I think players like, for example, English grandmasters Jonathan Spoon and John Nunn. I think they probably know. Well, I'm sure they know a lot more theoretical endgame. They've got more theoretical endgame knowledge than I have. They've written some very very good endgame books and studied the endgame in depth, which I haven't. Well, and they probably know exactly which endgames. A lot more than I do about which endgames are absolutely winning and which aren't. But I'm a good practical endgame player. I know how to increase the pressure and improve my position, improve my pieces. And I think in general, I think strong players, grandmasters, don't tend to think dogmatically. I mean, I said this somewhere in an interview elsewhere that when you listen to lower graded chess players doing a post mortem, you'll hear one of them say, "This is completely winning," and the other one say, "No, it's dead drawn. No, that's
Mhm.
lost. That's a losing move. That move loses. That loses by force. I'm completely winning." It's all like that, very dogmatic. If you listen to the very strongest players, they'll say, maybe white is a little bit better here, but I'm not sure. Perhaps I could try bishop g3, but then maybe you can play something like this or this in reply. So the stronger the player, the more they're aware of how little they know. And
Yeah.
this is probably maybe something you could, that's a useful tip for life as well. In the words of Bertrand Russell, fools and fanatics. The main problem with the world today is that fools and fanatics are so full of themselves, are so sure of themselves, and the wise so full of doubts. This
Yeah.
so this is kind of can be, fanaticism can be a problem in both. I don't know if fanaticism is quite the word I'm using in a chess analogy, but when
Yeah.
you are pretty sure, the weakest players are absolutely sure who's winning and absolutely sure who's losing, and the wise players, the stronger masters, are kind of, I don't know. I am aware that I don't know. I'm aware that I don't know what's going on. I'm aware
Yeah,
of the
Peter
thing.
Svidler, I think. Peter Svidler's announcing is renowned for that. Everyone loves him as announcer, myself included. But
Brilliant.
whenever he's announcing, he's always like, "Oh, I don't really know what you're supposed to do here," and then he reels off like 8 moves of theory, or
Yeah.
like, just again and again like that. But
I've watched him
yeah,
commentate on my own games against him because I play blitz against him most weeks. There's a tournament every Sunday evening organised by Ali Mortazavi, an English international master, and we all play. And Schwidler plays in this tournament, and so I get to play him every week. And I sometimes watch his commentary afterwards, and it's like there's all this uncertainty, and he plays
yeah,
really great moves. And he says, "Oh no, what am I doing? How can I play this?" And then he's like, "Yeah, he just plays a great sequence of moves." But yeah, I think that kind of being aware that how little we know about the game and how, but still playing it to the best of your ability is about as good as it gets. But yeah, it's interesting how the weaker the players, the more they think they're sure of what's going on.
yeah, something to be learned there for sure. So I want to hear more about these blitz escapades, Keith. But first, let's take a break to hear from our friends at Chessable. As always, Perpetual Chess is proud to be brought to you in part by Chessable.com. Chessable is a chess learning website that utilizes its move trainer technology to help you learn and remember opening lines, tactical patterns, and endgames. It is endorsed by GM Magnus Carlsen and features courses from I.M. John Bartholomew, Sam Shanklin, Wesley So, and so many others. Chessable has over 100,000 members and features hundreds of courses both for free and for purchase. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please go to chessable.com and take a look around. Back to the interview. So Keith, you mentioned these tournaments with Ali Mortazavi. Seems to be a pretty well-connected British player. I follow him on Twitter. They sound like fun. So let's hear some more about what goes on. I'm guessing there's like Lawrence Trent involved, Peter Svidler. What else? Who else is involved in these tournaments, and what's the atmosphere like?
Yeah, so you've got these big names. I mean, sometimes David Howell plays, Julian Hodgson plays sometimes. I mean, people haven't seen Julian Hodgson in action over the board for I don't know how many years, 20 something years. A very famous player. Simon Williams himself plays. We've got a very, very strong blitz player in the UK called Amit Gassi. He's an IM, but he's GM strength, but he's got a job outside of chess, so he doesn't get to play for norms often enough. But he's a very strong player, very, very good blitz player, and just a lot of very good blitz players and some legends playing these events. But I mean, in general, on the internet, you can play some amazing tournaments. I mean, last week, I think about a week ago, I played in a tournament, and I got to play. I played Firuza. Like Firuza's like,
Wow.
and I was even +4. I mean, I was like winning. I was winning with black. But anyway, that's another story. Ifs and buts. And I played Mickey Adams twice in this tournament. I played David Howell. I played Luke McShane. I played Gawain Jones. I played. I can't remember his name. No, but famous Serbian player. Sorry, he's going to hope he doesn't see this. I've got his name now. Sokolov. Sorry, Sokolov.
Oh, Sokolov, of course.
I
Yeah.
played Sokolov. I played Moldovan. Tell me who's the best Moldovan player. I was really, really bad with names sometimes.
No, man, I'm failing this test.
But anyway, this one event in over 2 hours, I played like a huge number of strong players. It was a memorial of a good friend of mine, a good friend of mine, a memorial to a friend called John Naylor.
Yeah. So I saw, Naylor, was that his name?
Yeah, John Naylor. Yeah, very, very, very tragic. So we don't.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, do you mind just telling our listeners, because I think there's probably people like me who are not from the UK, so didn't know him as well, but saw some people mourning him. Could you just talk
But
about him for a minute?
John was a very nice guy, very agreeable person, very kind-hearted guy, and it didn't reach his chess potential by at all. You know, very talented, but just a very likable guy. And it just took us all so much by surprise. Really heartbreaking story that we just one day we heard the news he'd passed away at the age of 48. And you know, if John could see the number of people who turned up and the stars from around the world who turned up for his memorial tournament. You know, he was loved by a lot of people. Great guy.
Wow, that's sad to hear, and certainly, a stark reminder to seek help if you need it. I mean, it's
we don't know how we don't know how he died. We don't know still. We don't know the. I mean, we don't know. There's going to be another a post-mortem at some point, or you know something. Or I don't know in these COVID days. I'm not sure how much they can even how much time they can give to even finding out the cause of death. So, but yeah, we don't know how he died, but yeah, very tragic.
Too young in any event.
Yeah.
So Keith, I really enjoyed also and by the way, we should mention, so for Arkell's Odyssey, your first book, you mentioned that it's going to be reissued, because I've wanted to read it for years, and it's only been available for hundreds of dollars. So what's the status
crazy,
of it?
It's kind of frustrating for me that it didn't get distributed better. It's frustrating for me that it came out about 8 years ago now, and it was just always so hard to get hold of. I mean, just friends saying, Keith, can you send me the book? I mean, because I can't get it any other way. So my idea is to add I mean, it ended the story ended in 2008 when I, with my coming equal first in a British Championship, and losing a playoff to Stuart Conquest, but retaining the title of English champion, which which was a culmination of my story at the time, because it's an achievement at the age of 47, and which I was at the time, and that was it. But what I intend to do is add a few chapters, perhaps include my senior achievements. I mean, I won a very strong tournament in Vienna at the age of 55 or 4 or something, and they include this kind of my achievements as a senior, throw in those things, and improve the quality, just get rid of a few errors. And then just re-release it, but perhaps use a combination of Ginger GM and Chess and Bridge again, and I may do a Kindle as well, and just get the book out there. So
that's great.
That's the intention.
I highly recommend it, and I think a lot of our listeners, of course, they gravitate towards these sort of chess biographies where there's some chess. And there's instructive quality, but there's also a lot of sort of reflection. I certainly, obviously, loving to interview chess players, I love hearing people's stories, and I think a lot of people feel that way. And I especially appreciated your candor, sort of about everything that's all the ups and downs of personal life that anyone would have. And you talk about how the chess world felt like it gave you a safe place in the world. I feel like that's something that a lot of people can identify with. So could you talk a little bit more about like your sort of your entrance into chess, and when you realized that this was something that really you wanted to devote a lot of energy to?
Well, first of all, the book itself, I was motivated to write it because originally I was approached to write a book about my best games, and my response to the producer was, what's the point? Players much stronger than me have done books of their best games. What's the point of me doing a best games collection? So then we settled on a full autobiography, not a chess. There's a lot of chess autobiographies out there. There's a lot of books where players write about their chess life.
Yeah.
But there weren't many where players actually totally talk about their life. The personal sort of psychology, the psychiatry,
relationships, panic attacks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was going to. Yeah, and so the idea was just, well, I'll do the whole thing. It won't be a chess. And the irony is that some people complain about that. The games aren't annotated very deeply. But
Right.
it's not a chess. Well, it is a chess book. It's not a chess book. It's a when I first wrote the book, the most of the responses came from the wives of chess players who'd bought the book during the tournament where it was first released, and the wives they enjoyed the story. Nobody bothered to read the chess aspects of it. So there's the wives rather than the chess players who were mostly reading it. But yeah, it's chess. I mean, chess for me was an amazing discovery. I mean, my dad came home from work one day when I was 12, I think 12 and a half, getting on for 13, and my brother was 14 months, wasn't he's 14 months younger than me, and our dad introduced this game to us, and I fell in love with it. It was, 'cause I was somebody who had very low self-esteem, very low confidence levels, and I wasn't getting anything from school to compensate for that. I mean, school doesn't work for everybody; it didn't work for me, and but chess was something that it really excited me, and I realised that I had a talent for it, and that gave me confidence in life. It gave me confidence at school. I was good at something. I was the best. I very quickly became the best in school at something, and yeah, that feeling of confidence I'd never had. I'd never had it in my life from anything. So yeah, chess helped me a lot. But yeah, I used to suffer from panic attacks from very early age up until the age of about 40. Then miraculously, at the age of 40, they just pretty much stopped. And I
That's
think this
great.
is probably, well, I don't know, I don't know, but it's probably the reason why I was able to continue improving, and why I think I reached my peak in around about mid 50s, 53, 54 in 2014, 2015. When I made 3 grandmaster norms in a row as a 53, I think I reached my peak much later than well. I suspect it's because having panic attacks just held me back from showing what I was capable of doing, in my earlier life.
So wait, you reached your peak at 53, is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but
Wow, so somehow I
yeah,
missed that. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I mean, yeah. In the end, second half of 2014, I was performing at 26 V-Day 2600. Yeah, tournament after tournament. I mean, I made it's the 3 numbers in a row I made. These are well documented. These tournaments are out there. The Isle of Man. Then my next tournament was a World Senior, which was very strong, and I made 8.5 out of 11. And then the Hastings Premier Tournament. These were three. So and I've never in my life been able to play at the level where I can make 3 GM numbers in a row. So around that time, I got to 25-20, but I was playing at higher level than that. But yeah, to get to 25-20 very quickly, you have to play at a higher level than 25-20. If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, people, how's it possible to get to your strongest you've ever been at that kind of age? And I think it's because of the incidental factors, my health improving, my the loss of the panic attacks disappearing. It's a huge, if you're not somebody who's never experienced a panic attack or kind of low level anxiety for a lot of their life, they have no idea of the effect of that. I mean, I was agreeing draws to give away tournaments because I couldn't deal with the anxiety of of playing some big game. But it's such a wonderful feeling of relief when that disappeared and I could play these big games and win big tournaments.
That's
Uh,
amazing. And you do feel like it just disappeared. There's no sort of work on yourself or triggering event that you could pinpoint.
no, I never got medical help. I just kind of, I didn't, I've not been officially diagnosed with I never got officially diagnosed with panic attack. I think probably one of the reasons why I never sought help for the condition was because when in about 1978, when I was about 17, I was having a particularly bad attack, a really horrifying one. It's really difficult to describe that it's you, it's just horror and terror, and it's awful. And I was having one of these things, and I thought I was dying of a heart attack, and so I called the ambulance. He got rushed into hospital, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and these doctors put these kind of attached all these things to my chest and testing that I'm all right, and at some point. It became clear to them that I was physically all right. Obviously, the attack must have subsided because when you're having a panic attack, your heart's just thumping away like crazy. But that this thing subsided, and then they just left me there in the hospital. The doctors disappeared, and the nurses, and I was just left to make my own way home. And it was kind of like it hadn't occurred to anybody in that hospital environment that I might have suffered from an anxiety attack or a panic attack. So I think even if you go back to, if you wind a clock back, 40 years, not so much was known about these conditions then. Just not much was
Yeah,
known
that's
about it.
true.
It was a phrase that wasn't used. Anxiety attack, panic attack. So yeah, so because of that reaction, I kind of thought I'm not going to do anything. I don't want to go to the doctor about it, so I'll get the same treatment. I'll get the same thing again. I'll just get kind of almost laughed at in effect. So I just dealt with it myself for
Wow.
two and a half decades. And I don't know, but I don't know why, but it just I was about 41 when I had my last panic attack. I'm very lucky. So and I also don't have the low level anxiety that I used to have as well, which is also amazing. So I'm kind of genuinely happy. It's a wonderful feeling.
That's great. That's great to hear. That's amazing and inspiring. First of all, just glad to hear that it's one less thing to deal with in life, but also just that sort of these we talk a lot about chess growth on the show, obviously, but that sometimes there is no change in the routines. You can just have a breakthrough for reasons unrelated to chess, which I think is encouraging for people feeling frustration at a plateau, which certainly is lots and lots of people. One other thing I wanted to follow up on in your biography, Keith, is you mentioned sort of deciding to pursue chess professionally. You say despite being little more than a club player, and from the timeline in the book, I wasn't entirely clear. Like what level were you at when you made this decision, and what age were you when you were just said, I'm going to focus on chess?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a positive decision. It wasn't like I really, really want to do chess. It was like more like I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid to go out there and do orthodox stuff. I mean, I tried a few days of work in an office, and I was absolutely
I
terrified.
want to get that story too. Yeah.
You saw that. Maybe you saw that bit. Maybe you saw the bit.
Yeah, but I want the listeners to hear it. So
No, I worked in his office for a couple of days, and I absolutely was terrified. I couldn't do the social banter. I mean, it was essentially in the office. There was this one guy about 40, and some young ladies, maybe early 20s, and he was kind of, he was able to kind of charm them, and they're all laughing at everything he said. And I was this awkward, spotty 17-year-old who just didn't know what to say, just sitting there shy and awkward. And I absolutely hated it. Totally self-conscious, couldn't do it. So I thought, I can't do this anymore. So the third day I stayed on the bus, went to the cinema instead.
So he got on the bus to go to work and didn't end up going, and that was the end of your normal working life, right?
That's my totality 9 to 5 work or any.
That's amazing. I love it.
Work. and then somehow or other, I chugged my way up through the chess rankings. I mean, so the answer to your question, how strong was I? At that point, when I jacked in school and pretty much decided to I lived with my parents and tried to get as good as I could at chess. At that point, I would estimate that I was maybe between 2100 and pushing towards 2200 strength as a 17-year-old. So nothing, certainly by today's standards, nothing promising at all. And it took me 7 years to become an international master, and it took me and I think I was 34 when I became a grandmaster. So the whole thing is a long, slow, grinding process, a bit like my style of playing the game.
Yeah, amazing. And how did you manage to support yourself, Keith?
At first, I was living with my parents. I paid them a certain amount to keep per week. I lived with my parents. I paid them, I don't know, whatever it was, £20, £30 a week, just for keep, just for my contribution, and they were happy for me to play chess. And after in my early when I was 24, 25, I got married to a girl called Susan, and I think when I met her, she was about 1800, 1900, but we were professional together. And by the time we split up 8 years later, she was either an IM or about to become an IM. So it was kind of, we made good progress together, and I was slowly going making progress as well. So we set up home. We earned enough money between us as a professional couple, We earned enough money to actually to both get a house and to actually put money in the bank as well. So we were quite, yeah, we did quite well as a couple. We were sought after for tournaments. We were Britain's, strongest professional couple. There's another couple who we were kind of, kind of friends with as well, with Glenn Fleer and Christine Fleer, who are, still going strong now.
Right.
But yeah, that was kind of for 8 years I was survived as and did well really as part of a marital team. Then when we split up, we split up in about '93, and that was when I mentioned earlier I devoted 2 years to, because then I was an IM, I was like 2450 IM, and I devoted 2 years to myself, to my own chess, because with Susan we were travelling around playing, but the emphasis, because she was our best woman player, the emphasis was on her tournaments, which was fine. We got to go to Cuba, we got to go to play a tournament in India, we got to into women's interzonal tournament in what was then Yugoslavia and so on. So we travelled to great places, but these weren't GM tournaments. These were tournaments, IM tournaments for Susan. And so I stayed in IM, and I was 2450 IM. When we split up, I then focused on becoming a grandmaster, and over the course of 2 years, I went from 2450 to 2545. 2450 IM to 2545 Grandmaster. Just by devoting myself to my own chess.
And that was the period you mentioned where you did do some opening work,
yes,
right? And
yes, exactly, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's super impressive, the continued improvement.
And then then I was 25-45 player, and then I started playing a lot of tournaments where you get fees to play, but there's no prizes. So I lost a bit of my motivation. I lost a lot of my motivation to become as strong as I could, and I just got by, and I let my rating drifted down until, and this was probably the big one for me. That the FIDE announced that the senior titles were going to shift from over 60 to over 50. This is wonderful. This is wonderful news.
Yeah.
I was like 52, I think, at the time, and suddenly I had a huge surge of motivation, and I thought, right, I'm going to go to these things. I'm going to try and do what I can, try and win these things. I feel strong for my age. I feel in good shape and everything. So I went to these senior tournaments, and I did well in them. I did as well as you can redo in them. My level went right up again to towards my potential. And I mean, at the moment, I'm in the middle of one of those kind of downsides of that. If you look at historically at my kind of the curve of my rating, I mean, you mentioned it had gone down. I mean, at the moment, I'm only 24, 29, but I know I'm desperate to play again. This is why I'm doing these two tournaments, because I'm not a 24, 29 strength player. I'm a 2500 strength player, and I'm saying that publicly to your listeners. I hope to get to, over the next 6 months, if there's enough chess, to work my way back towards 2500.
Yeah, and listeners, before we were recording, Keith was saying he's off to 2 tournaments that may even be done by the time this comes out. We're recording on September 16th, so we'll be able to check in and hope that things went well for you, Keith.
Thanks.
So I just have 1 or 2 more topics. Are you okay for 1 or 2 more, Keith? You've got You've had such a long and interesting career. I mean, it's like you're my favorite kind of guest, because you're obviously super strong, but also like with life perspective of having seen so many people and having been to so many places. And you mentioned some of the places you went with your ex-wife, and just seeing all the different places you went, because it's easy when you're looking at a game to kind of forget that this was a person who was like traveled to this place and was like maybe seeing these sites, maybe not. But what are your favorite places that you've ever been for chess?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I said the chess life, I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. And I've, sometimes I'll see there's a lot of snobbery in the UK. I don't know if you get snobbery in the States like we do. You get people saying you can't be a professional chess player unless you're 2,700 and earning 2,000 pounds a week. But I mean, I don't understand that at all. I mean, I work hard, and I'm a professional chess player, and I don't earn £2,000 a week, and I'm not 2,700 player. You can, but I've all my life I've gone to live in playing chess, and yes, I've loved it, and I've earned enough to be a professional chess player. I've earned enough been married as a professional chess player, and own a house and pay pay a mortgage and everything. And so yeah, I love all that, and yeah, and I love to travel, and I love to I love to go to different environments, different countries. I mean, India was a great experience. It was a wonderful experience. Went to Calicut for best part of a month, and was really well looked after there, and some very nice hot curries. I'm a big curry fan. Uh, I think I have to I think at the time I put the spices in the curry so that you to protect yourself from deli belly.
Right.
But I think yeah, that's going back 40 years, 35 years. Yeah, I had an interesting experiences traveling to Russia. I went to Moscow in '93 because my club won. The national championship against the odds. My little club rugby won ahead of all the big clubs in the country. We won the club championship, and in those days, the European club championship was a knockout, and we got drawn away at I think the best club, Moscow Burevestnik, and this was an amazing experience. So we got to play on stage in Moscow Central Chess Club, and we had Smyslov was in the audience. Can you imagine that? A world chess champion was in the audience, and I'm like a 22-10 player. And I'm playing against Lev Sarkis, he was Russian champion. He'd beaten Kasparov to be Russian champion, and I'm sitting there on board one on the first board against Sarkis, and by miracle I beat him. And he beat me in the second match. It's like 2 matches, and he beat me in the second match. But just experience of going to Moscow and playing chess, and then some years later I went to after Perestroika I went to Leningrad. Played a tournament, and I went via Moscow to Leningrad, and the actual difference in the atmosphere, difference in the culture, Russia before and after Perestroika. That's very interesting. Leningrad was, I loved Leningrad. I thought it was a beautiful city, and a very famous tournament there. Played a lot of very famous Russian players there. Players like Udasin and Kalifman before they were that well known to the West. They're obviously very, very strong, and I played all these strong Russian players and managed to make 50%. In a tournament. But yeah, I played a lot of tournaments in the States, around the New York area in 2007 and 8 and that kind of time. Played a lot of tournaments and different experience. Sometimes I had to bring my own chess pieces and clock.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what everyone says about the US.
Once I was on 3 out of 3, and I'm playing this guy. None of us have got a clock, so we don't have to play. I told him in Saratoga.
That's funny.
Yeah, and another thing is interesting experience about playing New York tournaments is that the prizes were the first prize in some of these tournaments, like at the Marshall Club, for example. Absolutely, I loved going to the Marshall Club. It's fairly famous. I loved to go there. But these little tournaments that we played there, like first prize, you'd earn more in 1 hour of walking dogs, or
right.
or like the dog walkers, or people who teach 7-year-olds, or basically child minding 7-year-olds while the parents are at work, or,
right.
So I can see why most of the New York grandmasters are earning their living teaching rather than playing tournaments. I can see.
Yeah, although they still turn out for those tournaments.
Yeah, but it's like a hobby, then, isn't it? You're not going to make money from it.
Yeah, for sure.
The job is to teach chess, and the hobby is to enjoy doing what you do, which is play chess.
Yeah, it's a concession for sure. So just a little, so you mentioned you haven't read a ton of books. I mean, I often like to ask about favorite books, but you also mentioned Ulf Andersson as a favorite player, and I know you've mentioned Karpov in other interviews or in your writing. So what was your approach to finding them as your favorite players? Did you read books of theirs, or did you just play through people's games? I mean, now we're in the chess-based era, but what was your approach to finding role models over the chessboard?
I used to play through all the games in chess informants. I used to get the chess informants, that just get the chess board out, chess pieces out, and play through the games. And I just noticed that the long games were my favourites. The long wins were my favourites, and I noticed that the players who were having those long wins were people like Ulf Andersson and Karpov and Salov and Tony Miles. And I noticed which players were winning the long grinds, and I was just loving those grinds, and therefore forming my heroes from those kind of players. But playing through games was my main, other than playing the game itself, was my main way of understanding chess, as well as I could. And but some books, I mean, like there's a book called Simple Chess by Michael Steen, and I learned a lot from that. In fact, it was from that book where I learned about the minority attack, which I now pretty much earn a living from.
Right.
The Carlsbad structure. It's Michael Steen who taught the fundamentals of the minority attack in simple chess. I thought that was a great book. I thought it was a great book. I mean, I'm kind of in agreement with Yasser Serouan about My System by Nimzovich. I think it's kind of not right. Not. I think it's wrong in a lot of ways, and I think I think when I've looked at Nimzovich's games, I think there's a certain amount of chess is a struggle. You'll win or draw by whatever means possible. And it's very easy afterwards to go home and say, "This is my system. This is how I do it." And okay, maybe you could say I'm guilty of that a little bit with my hierarchy and everything. But I felt it was kind of the whole thing's very regimental. Like we just chess. Real chess isn't like that. Real chess isn't. You don't have everything is done by numbers, by methods that you've got planned in advance. I think that the struggle with chess and Nimby's own games, they don't really. I think that's something like Master can be written after you've played, and this is what I do. But this is what. When you're actually playing, you can't apply these principles. You have to just try and fight and find the best move and defend a difficult position or find a creative idea to try and win. And none of this is in. And I think that's also true of. I think that's also true of things like a grandmaster. I think again too regimental. The business about candidate moves. I think if you sat there every move listing candidate moves, then creativity would go out the window for a start. Just moves that I've played which you couldn't possibly find by listing candidate moves, unless you just played the move that wasn't on the list and the least likely move to be on the list. I mean, I think books. I think there's some books which just didn't work for me, and my sister and I think I grandmastered two of them. They maybe work for other players. I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying they're bad books. I'm saying they didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. Might work for somebody else. But Simple Chess worked for me. And I can't think if. It sounds crazy to say that I've not read many. I can't think. I mean, there's books I've read because I've enjoyed reading them. I enjoyed reading Rowson's Chess for Zebras and some of his other books. But that's not really about improving chess. It's more philosophical.
Don't feel like you have to come up with suggestions.
I really haven't. I've got games collection. I mean, when I was, obviously, I had my 16-man war games. I had Zurich 53. I had Capablanca's 100 games. I had 2 volumes of Alekhine games, and the other thing that of course I remember now. There were books by Reinfeld and Chernev. Now at the time they were glorious. They were beautiful. They were like so artistic. But the problem was that as you got stronger, you started to realise that those games don't happen in real life. I mean, like you can't, unless you're playing somebody very, very, very weak, you can't just win a game on a single theme. It's kind of chess is more of a struggle than that. So, although I enjoyed Reinfeld and Chernev's books, I thought it again a bit too simplistic. Maybe that this is how you win when there's no resistance at all. That chess isn't like that. But at the time it helped. That's like I said, maybe 7 or 8 books that I've read. I started reading through, I think, Averbach's 5-volume collection of the 5-volume Endgame collection by Averbach, and I think right at the beginning it's bishop endings, and I think I got to about page 5, and I thought, can't do this. I'm not going to remember this. This is totally boring. I'm not going to remember anything I've read, and I just stopped. And that's the only time I've ever looked at an endgame which is designed to help you get better at endings.
That's amazing. I mean, but honestly, it's good to hear. I mean, again, another common theme on the podcast is how little we actually know about how to get better at chess. I mean, we talk about it every week, but we're all just taking our best guesses, and it really just goes to show that there's no one tried and true approach, and all the more reason to do what you enjoy, which certainly has been effective for you. I think there's some things that will always work. I mean, I think that playing as much as possible and trying your hardest when you're playing will always work. And I also think that going through your games with
either your opponent if they're strong or the strongest people you can get hold of. I think analysing your games with strong players, I think that will always work. So I think there's some things which I can't think anybody would argue with.
That's a good point. And how hard? What is your approach to when you play so much, Keith? How closely do you analyze your games, and have you historically over time?
I do go through my games, especially the ones that go wrong, because I can't. Yeah, I don't want that to happen again. So if I do lose in the opening or because of the opening, I can't. I can't. It's psychologically uncomfortable to have not done a repair job. I think you have to do a repair job, even if you'll never get the position again in your life. It's like I think I recommend that all chess players learn how to checkmate bishop and knight again and king against king, even though most of those players will never ever have that ending, because you need to have that psychological comfort of knowing that if you ever get that endgame, you will know how to convert it. And it takes half an hour at the most to learn. It's a very simple principle. It's a very easy endgame to learn. So I think a lot of stuff is worth just making an effort just to put yourself in a comfort zone.
Yeah, that's good advice. That makes sense. All right, Keith, last topic. I know you played Magnus when he was 11. Is that right?
I did indeed. Yeah.
What was that like?
Okay, my first. Okay, I just knew he was a prodigy. It was this GM tournament in Gazda. The only thing I knew is he was spoken of as a chess prodigy, and so we're playing, and he's rated, I don't know, 2200, maybe a bit less. And but he played this move against. Even in those days, I was playing these Carlsbad structures, and I think he was the first player that ever played C5 at the moment that he played it. He just tactically made this C5 thing work, and we had this incredible tactical sequence, which the computer now says it is a very high level, high quality game. It gives like near 100% on accuracy. But yeah, he played this move that started this long tactical sequence, but nobody. This concept was, he created this move. He understood that this move C5, if he can make it work, is the move that he should be playing. And I thought for an 11-year-old that showed an amazing feel for chess. Yeah, so that's. But yeah, I didn't. Other than that, I don't know. We had a post-mortem. I remember that we had a post-mortem, and yeah. Yeah,
Have you come across him since then?
I don't think. I'm not sure.
And you did win. You did win the game, right?
Yeah, I won the game. Yeah, it was a good quality game, and I think we were in the same event a few times, and we both played in Isle of Man a couple of times recently. I managed to get into that high-powered Isle of Man tournament amazingly, and
that's great. Yeah.
last October, and I think the previous Isle of Man, I think he was. No, I think that's right. There was a moment when he was on board 1 and I was on about board 50 or something, but board 50 was next to board 1 by a fluke of the way the rows were, and I didn't notice at the time because I was engrossed in my game, but I saw them on the video afterwards, which I think it was on. I think was it Simon Williams? There was a video. There was a kind of there was a commentary, a live commentary of the you consider playing hall. This a few moments when Magnus is kind of like he's got off his game. He's kind of looking at my game. He's looking at the position,
right.
And then which is probably perhaps only interesting in that because in this game I played this rook c1 and then rook fc1, rook c2, rook ac1 in some kind of London system behind this position before the c pawns have disappeared, and then that's the position that Magnus was looking at, and it's probably just a fluke. But then, like about maybe a month later, in a rapid play tournament, he played the same idea.
Oh, okay.
But it may just be a fluke, and I may just even imagine that whether he was actually properly looking at the game or not, or whether he was.
No, you got to take credit for that, just in case.
Just in case, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But,
so. So who else are I mean, obviously you've played tons of superstars. What have been like the most memorable experiences for you in terms of both just analyzing with someone super strong or playing them, or just generally?
It's a quirk. It's a quirk. It's not a proper answer to the question. It's a very strange quirk that the last World Championship final was between Magnus and Caruana, and just by in the days of ICC, I just happened to play Caruana 3 times, and I scored 2.5 out of 3. So
oh wow!
It's there for anybody. How you just search atom rod adaptation, and you can see the games, and even in the third game, I lost on. lost some time when I was about to checkmate him. But it's just one of those quirky things, and that's my score against Karajan and against Kai Yakin. I happened to play over the board in Hastings Premier in Grandmaster tournament. I happened to play him when he was like the world's youngest Grandmaster, but not 2800 strength yet. And that was a draw. So all these guys who were playing at the very top, I just by some really weird fluke, either because of their age or just because it's 5 minutes or whatever, I just happened to have this good score against these guys. But
That's great.
but that's not okay. That's not a proper answer to the question. That's just bragging.
I would brag too.
Name dropping, bragging. Yeah. Look how clever I am being these little kids. But yeah, let me think. Who have I had to interesting experience playing or interacting with? I mean, I'm lucky that I played Mickey Adams loads and loads of times, maybe 40 times, and that's obviously an experience that I probably take for granted. But if I, four in the world and 5 in the world for long periods of time, but yeah, more recent times to be in the same team as John Spielman, analysing with John Spielman has been quite rewarding. And again, he's been a candidate, semi-finalist in the candidates. Sorry, finalist in the candidates. One match away from playing a final, playing a team of Short, Spielman, and Nunn in a team with those guys, and analysing the games afterwards with them. This was at the senior team in recent years. This was quite an experience. But yeah, nowadays the very best players in the world today. Probably not a lot really, but of course, what I say though is just watching these guys play. You don't have to interact with them directly.
Yeah,
we all have this advantage now that we can watch them do banter bits. We can watch them do live commentaries while they're playing or after they've played. We've got this amazing access to all the best players in the world now that we didn't used to have. In the 70s and the 80s and 90s. It's just this is one of the things I think that's made lockdown more enjoyable. That we can just sit in front of our computers and watch these great tournaments and watch these players think, watch them play, watch them analyse afterwards, and watch them play blitz and watch them talk while they're playing blitz. And there's so much chess entertainment out there now. So yeah, I'd say that I'd sort of put that up there with any kind of direct experiences that I've had.
Yeah, it is amazing. And now it's like Giri's got a YouTube channel, like Rajabov's got a YouTube channel, like Vidit's got a YouTube channel, and that's on top of, as you say, all of the banter blitzes and the commentary and the so on and so forth. Cool. Well, Keith, this has been amazing, as I expected. Are there any topics that you were hoping to address that we haven't gotten to?
I don't know. I got to be honest. I didn't try to think what you were going to ask me. I just came chilled. I just came chilled to the.
You don't like opening preparation, so
yeah, I don't like opening preparation.
Didn't want to study too much in advance.
Yeah. I didn't want to guess your questions in advance. I can't think. There's nothing that I think I wished he'd asked me about that. There's nothing. So yeah, it's. I think we're good.
Okay. Excellent. Well, Keith, so I know you're not super active on Twitter, but you have an account there.
Yeah.
And definitely people should pick up Arkell's Endings and keep an eye out for the reappearance of Arkell's Odyssey. Is there any other channel through which they should track what you're up to?
Again, consistent with my laziness, instead of creating my own website, I simply use Facebook a lot for my way of. That's my So I've got kind of 5,000. It's like a giant chess club. I mean, there's a lot of people who one of my main criteria for accepting somebody on Facebook is they're a chess player. So I've got created this giant chess club of 5,000 people who and I'm addressing people through Facebook. So when I want to have a thought about something or talk chess, I very often post games that I've played, positions I want to analyse. There's a lot of interactive analysis. Like Shirov will come on my account sometimes and discuss positions with me and so on, and different very strong players. So yeah, there's a lot of chess interaction on my Facebook pages, and it's open. When I post it for the world to see. You don't have to be my Facebook friend to be able to interact with me on there. So I'd say that's my main outlets.
Okay, I'm gonna add you. I'm more. I have Facebook, but I'm more of a Twitter guy, so that had escaped my attention. But now I'm definitely gonna add you and go through the archive. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Keith. This has been a lot of fun.
Cheers, Ben. It's been absolutely great. Thanks for inviting me.
Good luck. Yeah,
really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Excellent. Yeah, and good luck in the tournaments. I just wanted to add, we're jealous. I'm sure a lot of people are jealous that you get to play. Oh, and sorry, last thing, so we can look up how it went. Can you remind me what?
The first tournament is Pardubice near Prague.
Okay.
P-A-R-D-A. Well, I can't spell now. P-A-R-D-U-B-I-C-E. Pardubice, near Prague. That's from the 21st to the 28th of September, and the second one is called First Saturday, very famous series of tournaments.
Right, of course.
First Saturday, and this is 3rd to 13th of October in Hungary, in Budapest. And maybe I'll stay on and do some more, but I don't know. Or I might come back. I don't know yet. But there's an opportunity to stay out there and play some more tournaments. We'll see about that.
Excellent. Okay, well, my daughter is crying. I think that's my cue, Keith. But yeah, we'll look forward to checking the results. And thanks again. This has been a great interview.
Take care, Ben. It's been lovely. Look after yourself. Cheers. Cheers.
Special thanks, as always, to my producer, Mathew Passy, and thanks to those who continue to help spread the word about Perpetual Chess. You can spread the word via word of mouth or positive reviews on podcast platforms. We are up to 98 written reviews on Apple Podcasts, and only one of them aggravates me. Amazing support. By the way, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm @BennyFischel1, or join the Perpetual Chess Facebook group and continue the conversation about the latest interview. You should also check out the Perpetual Chess Instagram page. But more than anything, I want to express my gratitude to those who provide financial support to the show. Most of all, I want to thank Chessable.com for sponsoring the show, and to everyone who kicks in via PayPal or the Perpetual Chess Patreon page to help sustain and improve the show, and while they're at it, find out about future guests and send in some great questions. So without further ado, I'd like to give special thanks to the following people and entities. They are Chessable.com, Quality Chess Books, the Capital City Chess Club, the Abysmal Depths of Chess blog, the Apprentice Twitch channel, Andrew Alharji, Andrew Bach, Andy Ryerson, Austin Clough, Benjamin Porteau, Bill Sigler, Kathy Carr, Chad Oliver, the Charlotte Chess Center, the Chess Central's Chess blog, Chessmood.com, Chris Flanagan, Dan O'Hanlon, Danny Davidson, David Schreiber, I am Dimitri Schneider, Drake Domingue, I am Eric Rosen, Firas Sawaf, Gary Foreman, Greg Harfst, Greg Natel, I am Greg Shahadi, Guven Monet, James Kennedy, Jens Green, John Jernigan, John Rockefeller, John Cromarty, John MacArthur, Kelly Palmer, Kevin O'Callahan, King Selt, Lucio Casada Silva, the law offices of Stuart Katz, LeelaAnalysis.com for cloud-based Leela engine analysis, Michael Can, FM Michael Oblin, Mike Zelazny, Mr. Mike Shahadi, the famous Mr. Dodgy, the Nerdnaze Twitch channel, Peter Sadi, the Play More Chess Academy of the Hamden Chess Club, Reuven Fisher, Robert Coucher, Seattle Chess Club, Shane Unger, Stefan Kelty, Stephen Martinez, Thomas Stenix, Thomas Tachenko, Todd Bryan of StrongChess.com, Todd Kennedy, Wayne Beam, and I would also like to thank Aaron Waffler, Ace Vallega, Adam Ralph of ChessEngland.com, Adrian Gutierrez, Alex Pejas, Andy Ryerson, FM Andrei Terakov, Dr. Andrew Perry, Aniti Deer, Barry Hessian, Bill Juniper, Bill Moran, Brad and Andy Rosen, Brett Howard Lynn, Brian Mullis, Bruce Scott, Brian Tillis of Palm Beach Chess, Chad Hilton, Dr. Charles Snodgrass, Chris Wayne Scott, Christopher Baumgartner, Christopher Chabris, Chris Lott, Christopher Wood, I am Christoph Zalecki, aka Chess Explained, Coach J's Chess Academy, Costa Carras, Courtney Fry, Craig Mallon, Daniel Ginsberg, Daniel Naylor, Dave Saylor, David Bleskacek, David Cramley of Chessable.com, Dalen Shelton, Dirk Decker, Drake Domingue, Dwayne Edmonds, Ed Daly, Ethan Smith, Hallelujah Cat, Ian Mason, FM Donnie Ariel, Fox Valley Chess Club, Francis Letarte Lavoie, Frank Tortoris MD, Frank Zananis, Gary Andrews, Gary Lewis, Geert Vanderveld, Gerard Barta, Giovanni Russo, Han Schut, Harish Srinivasan, Jacob Kovac, Jacques Perry, James Aspinwall, James Bonastia, James Muir, Jason Woolham, Jaydeep Chakrabarty, Jeff Anderson, Jeffrey Martello, Yep Horland, Jerry Wells, Jim Ratliff, JJ Stranad, Dr. John Fallon, John Fernandez, John Fontaine, John Hartman, John Jeffrey, John McMurtry, Jonathan Slater, Jose Rodriguez, Justin Gardner, Jen Shahadi, Joel Rocky, John Thompson, Grandmaster Josh Friedel, I am Kare Christensen, WGM Katerina Nemtsova, Kelly Palmer, Kevin Pryor, I am Kostya Kovutsky, Krishna Gopala Krishnan, Kyle McAvoy, Larry Ryforth, Laura Boyowski, Martin Knudsen, Martin Krug, Matthew Passy, Matthew Tedesco of SeattleChessMeetup.org, the Mechanics Institute Chess Club of San Francisco, Michael Allard, Michael Hudson, Miguel Aristide, Mike Clem, Mitchell Fabian, Nate Solon, Neil Bruce, Negmat, Milad Janov, Olaf Mueller-Michaels, GM Pascal Charbonneau, Passy Passanen, Paul Bain, Paul Clarkson, Paul Swaney, Paulo Santana, Peter Lux, Randy Temple, Ricky Grijalvo, Richard Hollenbach, Robert Turner, Roy Yearwood, Ryan Berg, the Say Chess YouTube channel, Scott Doherty, Scott McKinnon, Sebastian Finsterwater, Shane Unger, Stefan Roller, WGM Tata of Abrahamian, Tim Brennan of TacticsTime.com, Tim Seymour, Timothy Ha, Tom Edsel, Tomas Kolmanich, Tony Rotella, Tyron Price, Vishnu Srikumar, William H. Brock, William Juniper, William Hogarth, William Peterson, FM Zhao Chang of Chess1000.com, and Zhivko Storyanov. Thanks, as always, for listening, and I will catch you all next week.